Let's get to it. A fiend kills 17 in Florida. I won't mention his name. You're not going to see his picture. Instead, let's focus on helpful action. Here are some things I'd suggest to do to reduce these events. Number one, we need to harden soft targets with security and training. This should be a trillion-dollar industry, one that helps protect against not just mass shooters, but terrorists as well. An industry that's already used by tech giants, entertainment, and media entities should be bigger than all of them combined. It makes sense. Number two, we need a new motto. Fact, this punk had a zillion red flags. The FBI were tipped off, and they blew it. So no more see something, say something. Instead, give me see something, say something, now do something. The problem is, no side in this debate trusts each other. If you say you want common sense gun laws, the other side knows that's code for something else. If you say you want your gun rights protected, the other side calls you a killer. So here's a suggestion. Think offensively. The mistake we make is to think defensively. You know, how do we rig the system to stop perps from getting guns? That's wrong. You need to think offensively. How do we tag the perps and keep them from getting guns? We want law-abiding folks to have access, not the bad eggs. Do you see the difference? We need a database where a creep like this fits in perfectly based on testimony from cops, students, school officials, who then get a judge to issue a civil court order. If you're in this base, no gun. And liberals, no more whining about mass incarceration. You violate the database, you get a felony hit, mandatory time. Number three, bring back psychiatric hospitals. They still exist, but state-run facilities house less than a tenth of the patients that they did back in the 50s. That's a 95% decline. How is that possible? You're telling me I might not be nuts, but a score-settling nihilist. And that speaks to a greater issue, one that the media indulges. And it's my last point. Infamy. If you look at these mass killers, you'll find an interest in those who came before them. And our relentless coverage caters to that. And so we keep showing the face of the fiend over and over and over as we dig deeper into his life, which the media repeats because, you know, you got to fill space. But this coverage only creates more monsters. We advertise infamy, creating incentive for the next attack. Look, we are all vulnerable to persuasion. If not, why do we have advertising? We know fiends study press clippings of past fiends. We know that when a teenage suicide is covered, it always triggers more. News coverage magnifies the impact, and that becomes catnip to others. So imagine the power that this fiend has over us to command every network to abide by his actions, to foment chaos and make us question our very own safety, to make all of us know his past, his deep thoughts. What kind of power does this fiend have over us? It's a power that we give him at a terrible cost.
Period.
Let's welcome tonight's guests. When the going gets tough, the tough get shit. Terry Shepard, retired Special Forces Master Sergeant. Terry Shepard. He's 50% bold, 50% beautiful actor and author Sean Kanan.
Hey.
She's zany, brainy, and loves it when it's rainy. National Review reporter Kat Timpf. And big rigs are his roller skates. Former bodyguard, massive sidekick, Kyrus. All right. This has been an ugly week, Terry. No question about it.
Really
and
bad.
we seem to get here and we go through these stories a
Quite
lot.
frequently.
Yeah, and I'm curious about you. You are around guns all the time. You've been in combat. I'm interested in what your perspective is.
Yeah, well, this hurts everybody. I mean, one thing that's really bothers me is as soon as this happens, everyone's like, you want to see kids dead, or you don't care about this. This is the worst thing that can happen. And yeah, I'm 25 years almost in Special Forces. I fight over there, so we don't have to have this happen. So it's really, it galls me. I've always said this, and you've got some great stuff, Tyrus, we talked about later. I'm going to let him hit this, but I've always been willing to have a conversation with people who are suspicious of guns. I'm a Second Amendment guy, obviously. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to sit down and talk to someone about this, but they've got to be at least honest. They've got to be at least factually correct, and they've got to have it in good faith. And I think you're right. You have these two sides now that anytime I hear exactly what you said, sensible gun, I said, well, who's the one making that sensible decision? America is guns, man. It's a gun country. Something's wrong about not the guns. It's something wrong about all the other things. And that's all I can say about that.
There's a combination of factors, but when a Republican hears sensible gun laws, they think that they're opening the door to something else. And then if you say First Amendment, then they think, oh, you're just you know, a crazy.
Every time.
Sean, you're a dad. So this probably, when you see this kind of stuff, it's got to be...
It's terrifying. I mean, it's, you know, here we are 1 month after the shooting in Kentucky, and this is a tragedy that touches all of us. And, you know, like Terry said, I'm a Second Amendment proponent as well, but... You know, here's the thing. Very few things in life are black and white. They're nanoshades of gray. And, you know, one of my nanoshades of gray is I just don't feel an 18-year-old kid outside of training in the military needs to have an assault rifle like that. You know, and we have to start having an honest conversation about this. I mean, you hit so many great points in your monologue about things that need to be done that shouldn't be politicized by either side. You know, they're just good common sense.
Yeah. It's interesting because the difference in guns and the idea of age is an important factor that I've been thinking about. The fact that, you know, you should have an experience, like have a gun license for 10 years, and then you get this because it gets you to become an older adult. And older men are different than younger men. And it's biological, it's hormonal, and maybe that's one solution. Kat, you know, we talk about the bifurcation of politics. The two loudest voices are often the ones we hear most. Is there any way that somebody ever gives an inch on this?
No, I really don't think so. And if you talk about banning certain kinds of weapons, rifles of any kind were responsible for only 3% of homicides in 2016. It's very rare for something like this to happen. Of course, that doesn't make anyone feel better when a tragedy like this happens. But I'm going to do something really crazy, which I have not heard anybody do yet, and I'm going to blame this shooting on the shooter. I'm going to say that it was his fault.
But he showed remorse, Kat. Remember, remember after his lawyer says he showed... Yes. We've said that word 3 times now. Our censors are going to be upset. All right, Tyrus, we were talking in the green room that you had your own solutions.
Well, this is coming from a place of being executive security, and for a short stint, I was a teacher. It wasn't bad, just pay grade. So it wasn't really funny. And when I was listening to this, because of course, first of all, if we outlawed guns tomorrow, no more guns in this country, all you would do would be opening the business market for the black market. Just like we said, no drugs, and drugs still get pushed in this country, and then we have no idea what was out there. So that's just not who we are. We have freedom of speech, and we're going to have guns. That's what our country's built on. But when 9/11 happened, the planes hit the towers, airports were changed forever. We got the TSA. Our children are getting hit. It's time to change the schools forever. And there is a population out there, and I checked, they didn't have the new stats out, but last year's stats was 4.3% unemployment for returning veterans in this country. That's 435,000 trained men who have eyes and ears. We need to have them at the schools. TSA needs to be at the schools. One way in, one way out. We have dogs. There's not one person in this building who will say, up my taxes $25, whatever it needs to be, $1 trillion. It's a business. I would even take money away from other things. Because the only way we need to get with it, because now it's guys with guns. 10 years from now, it's going to be guys with a drone. It's going to be guys with a remote control robot. And who's better? When I'm at the airport and I see a guy with an M16 and a German Shepherd dog walking by smelling stuff, I'm not worried. But you know what? The reason why that dog bothers you, because you immediately go, I don't got nothing on me, right? Right. I'm cool. I will take that, and it needs to happen in our school. We TSA, we protect our airports. Although a different name TSA, but let's protect our children.
That's a good idea.
It's doable. It can be done. Let's do it.
It is. I mean, obviously, there is the argument that what kind of society have we become that we are actually having to protect? That we have to do that. Well,
we're an honest society.
We're an honest society.
Let's be big boys. Let's keep it real.
We have 320 million people. That's a huge haystack. We've got so many variables, technology, and this disaffected youth, and all sorts of. People are changing, and you bring up the idea of drones. In terms of people who want to create mayhem, terrorists, or mass shooters. The idea of marrying a drone with any kind of bio agent.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and it may happen probably in our lifetimes, I would think.
You know, there's another aspect to this. I mean, obviously, this is going to take a multi-pronged approach to deal with this. And one thing that I think we need to talk about is the nexus between social network platforms and law enforcement. Because for me, it's really egregious that there's language this kid was using on Facebook, and they've got all these algorithms to get us to buy this. They know when we come from Olive Garden, and they say, you know, how was your experience there?
Good.
And they can see something like, hey, I want to be a professional school shooter, and those jackasses can't report that to law enforcement.
This is such a good. We got to go, but this is so funny. If I decide for 10 minutes to look for mattresses for the next month, all I have all over my computer are mattresses.
Sure, Greg, it's mattresses.
It's not mattresses.
It's
not mattresses.
But
Greg was looking at mattresses.
But Sean's right. They know everything about us. They know everything about us.
It's young mattresses.
It's in he's
in heels.
All right, but it's true. There is an algorithm for everything, and they could solve that. That's such a good point. All right, don't go anywhere. Russia collusion delusion suffers a serious setback. That's next.